Of all the unmade David Lynch projects, none have fascinated me and piqued my interest more feverishly than his unmade adaptation of Franz Kafka's The Metamorphosis. David Lynch's work has often been described as Kafkaesque, and the director himself has expressed his love for the writer many times, even saying, "The one artist that I feel could be my brother is Franz Kafka. I really dig him a lot. Some of his things are the most thrilling combos of words I have ever read. If Kafka ever wrote a crime picture, I'd be there. I'd like to direct that for sure. I'd like to direct a movie of the trial." One of Kafka's works in particular really fascinated Lynch, and that was The Metamorphosis, a 1915 novella about the transformation of a man into an insect. In the iconic short story, the main character, Gregor Samsa, wakes up as a giant insect one morning, and the novella details the increasingly uncomfortable situation that develops in the Samsa household as a result of his transformation. The novella is deeply tragic, but it is very straightforward, and has a black sense of humor that Lynch clearly related to. The aesthetic sensibility of The Metamorphosis, and of Kafka's work in general, can be easily spotted in Lynch's early work, like Eraserhead. But Kafka's work has clearly continued to inspire Lynch's art, and is spiritually present in almost all of his forays into cinema and television, including Twin Peaks: The Return. In the 1980s, David Lynch actually wrote a screenplay adaptation of The Metamorphosis. In the collection of interviews conducted from 1993 to 1996, Lynch on Lynch, the director actually got into this project a little bit and detailed some of what his vision would have been. He said, "I identify a lot with the character of Gregor Samsa, but I don't want to get into the reasons why. I wrote a script, but I'm not entirely happy with the script. And something is just not right about it. Something's missing. Maybe it will pop in later on. This beetle cost so much money to make, and even so, I don't know if the technology is ready to build a beetle that works the way I would like it to work. But if you told me if you could build me a perfect beetle, then I would concentrate. I would sit down and really concentrate on the story and reading it. And I think in a little while I might, solve the problem." We had a plan to make a film based on Kafka's story, The Metamorphosis. I've even finished the storyboard, but the problem is the beetle. In Kafka's story, the man metamorphs into a beetle. It would have been good to make it as a mechanical puppet 5 years ago, but now it would only be possible to do it with computer animation, and that is very expensive. Maybe after another 5 years the prices will be lower, and maybe then it will be possible to make it. That would be wonderful. Apparently, Lynch's adaptation of The Metamorphosis was to take place in the United States in the 1950s, instead of Prague in 1912, and would deal subtextually with the rise of rock and roll music that was taking over culturally in America. This moment in musical history clearly is a lifelong fascination for Lynch, and he continues to discuss it even as recently as a December 7th weather report on his YouTube channel.
This morning, I was thinking about the song That's All Right by Elvis Presley. This was his first single, and the story of this recording session is this great story. But that recording session in 1954 gave birth to Elvis Presley, known as the King of Rock and Roll.
To me personally, the idea of Kafka being retold by Lynch with a 1950s backdrop is about as thrilling as it gets. The Americana of the 1950s and the work of Franz Kafka are two of Lynch's most consistent and clear influences, and combining both in such a project would surely have made for a conceptually fascinating, visually one-of-a-kind film that honestly I could only see David Lynch being able to pull off successfully. While the practical effects for the Beetle Man would have certainly been a challenge to orchestrate, it certainly would have been possible, especially if the effects were done by talented practical effect artists like those employed by fellow Kafka enthusiast David Cronenberg, whose 1986 remake of The Fly proved the possibility of visualizing such a transformation on screen. After all, just rewatch Eraserhead if you need a reminder of what Lynch is capable of conjuring visually. And that was a student film, made on a shoestring budget. So it's certainly possible that with the right amount of money and the right artistic team, he could have made a version of the Metamorphosis that was quite compelling. I am glad, however, that the film did not end up being made with CGI animation, because that probably would have aged horribly and really would not have paired well with David Lynch's aesthetics, in my opinion. Recently, David Lynch again commented on the Metamorphosis project at the Lucca Film Festival in 2014 in Italy. Seemingly, he unfortunately quashed the possibility of his vision ever being realized, saying that probably only a very small audience would have wanted to see the film in the first place, the budget would have been too high, and that also, in the end, he felt it probably would have been better left as a great book.
Also, in the end, I felt
Anche da dire che alla fine sentivo
that it was better left as a great book.
che era meglio lasciarlo come una grande storia.
No one can say for sure how Lynch's interpretation of the Metamorphosis would have turned out, but it undeniably would have been a hell of a film. And with David Lynch's recent newfound collaboration with Netflix, there's always the faint, distant possibility that someday we'll see his vision of the Metamorphosis come to fruition. Thanks so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, make sure to subscribe so that you don't miss any upcoming videos we make here at the David Lynch Diner channel, where we're going to be exploring some more of David Lynch's work, including his existing projects like Twin Peaks Seasons 1 through 3, and his feature films like Lost Highway, Eraserhead, and Blue Velvet, as well as some more of his unmade projects like Ronnie Rocket and Antelope Don't Run No More that have yet to come to fruition. I'm really excited to talk about these projects and the life of David Lynch, and hopefully to foster a community of like-minded fans here at the David Lynch Diner. And if you're a fan too, I hope you'll join me by subscribing so that you won't miss the next video where we go into some more of David Lynch's art. Thanks guys, and see you next time at the David Lynch Diner.